And I was reading in John 21 this afternoon, and I ran across a thought that I've never thunk before. It says when Jesus is restoring Peter on the beach, and he tells Peter, "You're young, and you've been young, but you're going to be old, and men are going to do things to you that they're going to kill you, and it's going to cause your death." And I've read that before, and thought the things I normally think, and then it came to mind that we talk about the early church and what did the early church do, and what do we do, and how are they the same and different. And I was thinking about the biblical doctrine of imminence, that Jesus could return at any time, and I believe that with all my heart, that he could come before I finish my sentence. But if Peter and John and the other disciples on that beach knew that Peter was going to grow old and die for the sake of the Lord's name, then would they have thought that Jesus could return at any time after he ascended?
That is a good question. Did you hear what he said? Could all of you track that? If we believe, and by the way, a major doctrine at Calvary is the dispensational interpretation of Scripture and the belief that the rapture could occur at any minute. What about Peter knowing that he was going to live on the earth till he was old, and so Jesus wasn't going to return? That is really a good question. And by the way, being my right-hand man and friend, approximately 10 minutes before the service, he tipped me off that he was going to ask me that because he knew it was a hardie. And basically, I'm glad he asked it, and I'll come back and answer it, because when did the doctrine of the any moment return of Christ first get taught? Yeah, in 1 Thessalonians in AD 51. When was the rapture? Now, I don't mean people that can find the rapture in the Old Testament and the Gospels. But when did Paul say, "Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed"? And what does it mean when Paul talks about a mystery? And theologically, it's a truth that prior to that had not yet been revealed. And the rapture was one of those truths not yet revealed. So, we'll talk about that. And that is a good question, Dave. And also, I would add to that what Peter said in 1 Peter, 2 Peter 3. He said, Paul teaches things that are hard to understand. Paul teaches hard to understand things. Did you know that the whole doctrine of the any moment return of Christ for his church was primarily taught? Now it's sprinkled, and we can, because we know, the unfolding inspiration of the Scripture, starting with the Mosaic books, and then going into the what we call the historic books, and then we have the prophetic books, and then we have the Gospels, which actually some of them were written after the epistles, and then the epistles, and then the Revelation. If you think about it, the Bible was written over these 1,600 or 1,500 years, but doctrines that only occur here were not known by those who only had this much of the Bible, 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 and none of them basically had their own copy of all of it. And so there is what we call the unfolding, or what we call in biblical theology, the actual growth of a doctrine as the first occurrence that might show up here, but it's really enlarged and explained, way over here. And so all of that's going to be a great one. So, okay, now I'm supposed to practice the short. So, Dave, the short is that Peter didn't know about imminency. That's the short answer. And when Jesus said, I go and prepare a place, and if I go, I'll come, and he probably did not put together imminency until the hard things Paul started teaching, because it was a mystery until AD 50, 51. Not prior to that revealed. Now we can see it all the way through.